Revealed how losing my daughter over a 5,000 bag transformed my life in incredible ways. Tom Sanders, a history teacher, stood before his students, his passion for education matched only by his pride in raising a strong-willed daughter, Emily. At 45, he had spent years instilling values of hard work and integrity in his students, believing that academic success was secondary to the development of character. Yet now, the world around him felt as if it were imploding. In the past few months, he had watched in despair as Emily, his lively, bright-eyed girl, had morphed into a shadow of her former self. Every day, he saw her pull away from family dinners and laughter that once filled their home. She retreated into her world, one rife with insecurities that he couldn't seem to penetrate. The harrowing reality came crashing down one afternoon when he found her journal tucked between the pages of a history textbook, an innocuous discovery that unleashed a flood of emotions. Each entry revealed the depths of her suffering, the pain of exclusion, the suffocating grip of peer pressure, and the burden of living in a world where a 5,000 designer handbag defined worth. His heart raced as he read her words. The disillusionment of materialism was overwhelming and disheartening. "Am I not good enough?" she had written. "Why can't I just fit in?" The rawness of her thoughts gnawed at Tom's insides. This wasn't just a teenage phase. This was a profound crisis of identity that threatened to strip away everything he believed to be sacred. Feeling helpless, guilt surged through him like a venomous tide. Had his teachings failed her? Were his beliefs betraying him as society's shallow values took the front seat? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Upon returning to his empty classroom, Tom felt a growing determination gnawing in his stomach alongside despair. What was he to do? Could he really expect to challenge the culture that applauded wealth and status? Anger ignited within him, seeping into every crevice of his resolve. These were the very values he had opposed with every lesson he taught. Now he felt compelled to do something, to confront the very parents of his daughter's elite social circle that had raised this toxic standard. His voice echoed in his mind, warring with doubt. Would they listen? Or would they dismiss him as just another angry parent? The familiar walls of academic safety felt suffocating as he imagined standing before a crowd, facing judgment and disbelief from those he once considered peers. The pressure tightened in his chest, squeezing out any hope that change could come from this confrontation. As he prepared for the town hall meeting, with every breath he could feel Emily's presence beside him, a steady reminder of his obligation to honor her struggles. Yet, shadows of uncertainty loomed. He had no guaranteed victory against a lifelong narrative of superficiality. Would they see his truth or bury it beneath their extravagant facades? Each step forward felt laden with the weight of his daughter's fears, pulling him deeper into an emotional maelstrom that left him trembling on the cusp of his own evolution. Would he find the strength to uphold meaningful values, or would he falter in the face of conflict, losing not just his message but his daughter's fragile spirit? Tom paced the empty classroom, his fingers tapping nervously against the weathered desk. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, each buzz amplifying the intensity of his trepidation. Today wasn't just another day at school. It was the beginning of a confrontation that could redefine not only his relationship with Emily, but also his own personal integrity. He needed to rally his strengths, yet self-doubt loomed like a looming storm cloud. What would he say? The words swirled chaotically in his mind. Would they, these affluent parents who adorned themselves in status symbols, understand the deep, intrinsic values he desired to share? He envisioned their judgment cold, dismissive, and anchored in privilege. But grasping the edges of his resolve, he didn't allow it to consume him. This was his moment to unmask the pressures that suffocated their children, the same pressures that had twisted Emily's spirit, threatening to suffocate her very identity. That morning, as he prepared for the meeting, Tom found himself reflecting on his previous years in education. He recalled the robust discussions in class, the debates that ignited passion in his students. What if he infused that same passion into this meeting? He yearned for authenticity and clarity, wanting to unveil the truth of how materialism had stolen the joy and friendships from young lives like Emily S. Arriving at the meeting hall, the stark realization set in he was stepping into a battleground. The room buzzed with chatter, the air thick with the scent of designer perfumes colliding with expensive colognes. Tom straightened his spine, exhaling deeply, determined to remain grounded. As he took a seat at the back, he noticed a group of parents enthusiastically discussing the latest luxury items their children needed to succeed socially. His stomach churned. This was not mere conversation, but a stark representation of the toxic standard he sought to combat. When the meeting commenced, a school official stood to present obligatory updates. Tom's heart raced with each passing moment, thoughts racing faster than his heartbeat. The parents seemed absorbed in discussions of funding for sports teams or the newest technological trends for classrooms. Material concerns overshadowed the very essence of nurturing young minds' self-worth, empathy, and real connection. As the official turned to invite comments, Tom seized the moment, nerves transformed into steely resolve. The weight of Emily's struggle surged forward, propelling him beyond the confines of timidity. Slipping into the role of an advocate, he stood and cleared his throat, feeling the collective gaze of the room pierce through him. I cannot sit here quietly while we reinforce a culture that equates self-worth with belongings. I've seen firsthand the emotional toll this can take. My daughter is struggling under the pressure to conform, he started, his voice gaining strength. The murmurs quieted, eyes widened. Tom pressed on, fueled by the palpable energy in the room. We need to evaluate what we truly value. Is it the latest fashion, or is it compassion for our children's struggles? The silence felt heavy yet transformative. His words hung like a beacon amidst their materialistic murmurings. The room shifted at his declaration, but would they understand? Would they embrace the urgency of this message? Old battle lines were drawn in their expressions, some intrigued, others defensive. Tom's pulse raced with newfound clarity. The chance to be the catalyst for change was not just an opportunity, it was his responsibility. But what Tom didn't anticipate was the response that followed: a tense silence. An opposing voice rose sharply, a woman adorned in the latest designer attire, ready to label him as just another disgruntled parent. The tension crackled in the air, signaling the start of a confrontation, a moment where truths could either shatter or solidify. The time had come to face not just these parents, but the entire culture that threatened to engulf them all. How would he challenge the entrenched values that led to this turmoil? Would he stand strong, and for whom? Tom steadied himself at the sound of the sharply spoken words from the well-dressed mother. Her haughty expression reeked of condescension, but beneath that, he sensed the faintest flicker of discomfort among a few parents nearby. They hadn't expected him to challenge their ideologies, and the tension shifted from the clashing voices to an electric stillness, as if the whole room was holding its breath. Really? You think your daughter's issues come from a lack of designer accessories? She fired back, confidence drenching her tone. Tom inhaled deeply, the aroma of expensive cologne mixing with the scent of defeat he had prepared to ward off. Instead of sinking under her disdain, he felt a rush of adrenaline. It's not just about the accessories. It's about the mindset they represent, he replied, digging his heels into the ground of his conviction. If he was here to confront parents who felt rich enough to buy their children's happiness, he had to choose his words carefully. Emily feels the weight of social comparison every day. It's heartbreaking to watch her think that her value is wrapped in someone else's validation. The room buzzed again, this time with whispers colliding like turbulent waves. He could see the coalition of discomfort growing among those who had previously nodded along to the conversation on funding sports or gadgets. Hope surged within him. Perhaps he was igniting something more profound within this audience, questioning their values, their approach, and their shortcomings. I know that, he continued, his voice steady. As parents, we want to provide the best for our children, but are we sacrificing their true essence in that pursuit? We need to cultivate a space where they feel valued for who they are, not what they own. A father sitting to Tom's left shook his head in disapproval, but couldn't he hide the flicker of recognition in his eyes. And in that infinitesimal moment of connection, Tom realized he wasn't merely speaking to a room full of affluent parents. He was initiating a dialogue, one that could challenge them to reflect on the essence of parenting itself. As Tom eloquently navigated his argument, one shining truth emerged from the chaos. He was not just defending Emily, he was defining himself. He could feel an inner transformation as he stood with conviction, shedding old doubts that had plagued him in the classroom. His passion began to outshine the insecurities he often succumbed to. Just as he felt the tide turning, a murmur broke through, louder and more insistent, this time from a supporter. What you're saying resonates, Tom. We need to reevaluate what we focus on. It was a small but pivotal moment, establishing an ally among a sea of opponents. Tom showed him a faint smile, realizing the power of unity in the most unlikely spaces. Perhaps, he mused, this was what it felt like to embrace vulnerability and use it to foster change, not just for his daughter, but for all these children trapped beneath expectations that had long since become toxic. Yet, before he could bask in the camaraderie building before him, the designer-clad mother interrupted once more, her face contorted into something between anger and concern. Are you suggesting our children shouldn't be prepared for the real world? That they shouldn't know how to fit in with their peers? He felt a pang of doubt rising within him again. Wasn't he asking for them to fit in with a different perspective? No, Tom responded, his voice firm yet empathetic. I'm asking us to refine our definition of success, one that values empathy, connection, and integrity, rather than superficiality. As he finished, Tom sensed a wave of uncertainty sweep through the room. This conversation was just beginning, and the stakes rose higher than he'd imagined. He was not just advocating for his daughter anymore. He was challenging a system, a belief, a way of life that had become so entrenched in privilege that it stifled true growth in children. The murmurings resumed, but they felt different, an undercurrent of discord paired with a hint of introspection. Would this confrontation lead to a genuine reevaluation of values, or would it be dismissed? Among growing voices of skepticism and curiosity, Tom felt a heavy weight shift in his chest. The battle was only beginning. Would he have the strength to navigate the aftermath? Could change be achieved, or was he merely a voice crying out in the wilderness? Answers lay ahead, and as he stood poised amidst the storm, he realized this was not just a confrontation, but the awakening of his own potential and purpose. How far was he willing to go to ensure that awakening reached not just Emily, but all the children he cared deeply about? The quiet moment that followed Tom's proclamation felt electric, as though the room itself had expanded, allowing both tension and possibility to exist simultaneously. He could feel the weight of every gaze fixed upon him, some filled with skepticism, others with curiosity, that spark of connection igniting his determination. But doubt lingered at the edges of his mind, gnawing away at the foundation he had built. Was this dialogue going to reach the ears that needed it most, or would it fall flat, dismissed as idealism by those entrenched in their beliefs? He couldn't afford to lose this fragile momentum. Tom, the designer mother interjected, her tone tinged with a mix of disdain and disbelief. You're romanticizing a fantasy. The world doesn't work that way. Her words struck deep, a reminder of the societal pressures he was attempting to dismantle. With every fiber of his being, he had to counter that thinking, not just for Emily, but for every child obscured by a checklist of materialistic milestones. And yet, he began, voice unwavering, our children are living testimonies of that fantasy becoming a nightmare filled with anxiety and depression. Surely, we can admit that our current practices are failing them. A shifting gaze among a handful of parents told him he wasn't alone. The mere act of vulnerability was prompting introspection. He could see it in their expressions. Perhaps they hadn't thought about the implications of their actions this way, but what about next steps? Words alone wouldn't change ingrained behaviors. He had to devise a strategy, something actionable that transcended this gathering. What if we create a space where children are encouraged to express themselves freely? We could host workshops or mentorship programs that teach them resilience and the importance of self-worth beyond material possessions. A network of support. He noticed a few heads begin to nod, the slightest flicker of hope igniting in their eyes. There was an urgency to this moment, a shared potential for growth that he had never felt before. But as the idea hung in the air, he also realized what was at stake. Empathy is not a luxury, Tom pressed on. It's a necessity in a world that constantly demands perfection. But it starts with us recognizing our own biases, our own flaws in parenting. Are we prepared to take that first step together? As he spoke, he visualized the change, parents engaging with their children on a deeper level, crafting a new narrative far removed from privilege and consumerism. Still, there remained a tempest of resistance with these affluent parents, whose identities seemed so intricately woven into their possessions, be willing to confront their own truths before he could fully process that question. The father who had shown him a flicker of support stood up. I think Tom is onto something. It's not easy, but perhaps as parents, we owe it to our kids to start questioning our choices. It's worth exploring. The energy in the room shifted, a ripple of cautious enthusiasm beginning to spread. Tom's heart raced. It was exhilarating yet daunting. Would this be the moment they could galvanize together into something tangible, or was it just an illusion? Pushing his own fears aside, he sensed the time had come to face more than just social norms. He was battling within himself, questioning the depths of his courage and commitment to this cause. If he was going to lead this charge, he had to embody strength, not just carry it as a shield against scrutiny. Yet just as he began to take the next step forward, a voice from the back interrupted, clear, cutting, and unequivocal. This is all well and good, but let us be honest. Isn't it easier to just buy them what they want, rather than do the actual work of parenting? Tom felt his stomach drop. The room froze once more, but this time there was no incredulous silence. He could feel the tension morph into a tangible force, one that could either tear apart the fragile alliance he had just begun to forge or solidify a commitment to real change among those willing to confront their truths. The stakes had just heightened. It was no longer just about Emily. This was about how far he could push not only these parents, but also himself, the true test of his emerging resolve. Before he could respond, an uncomfortable silence fell again as all eyes remained trained on him. How would he navigate this overwhelming confrontation? The moment pressed against him like a weight he could neither escape nor bear alone. The time had come to confront not only those around him but the very foundation of his identity as a father, advocate, and man. The air thickened with expectation, but there lay an undeniable certainty. Beneath the chaos, profound transformation awaited, if only he could seize it. Tom exhaled slowly, his heart pounding as the weight of the question loomed larger than ever. Each gaze turned to him felt like a spotlight, probing at the very core of his convictions. How could he respond in a way that would not only address the provocative assertion, but also compel them to reflect on their values? His voice had to cut through the clutter of disillusionment, yet what emerged from him was less a rehearsed rebuttal and more a raw expression of his truth. It's easy to think that material goods can compensate for what our children truly need, he began, emboldened by the flickers of hope he had witnessed earlier. But we stand at a crossroads where we must ask ourselves, are we genuinely fulfilling our role as parents, or are we simply outsourcing it? In the silence that ensued, he considered the journey he had undertaken, from a parent molded by societal expectations to one now probing deeper questions about their meaning. The discomfort he felt was palpable. It mirrored the conflicting emotions that had plagued him since Emily had first voiced her feelings of inadequacy. If he could embrace his vulnerability, perhaps he could inspire others to do the same. Tom leaned forward, gathering his thoughts. I've realized that the material rewards we offer might only serve as distractions from the emotional connection our kids truly crave. They need our attention, our understanding. What if we could create experiences instead of offering gifts? What if our children could learn that their worth isn't tied to what they possess? The quiet resonated with a new intensity. A few parents shifted, some exchanged hesitant looks. He sensed an inkling of doubt in them, but also possibility. This was the kind of discomfort that could spark real dialogue, The designer mother, having absorbed Tom's words, appeared more contemplative than disdainful now. How do you propose we shift gears? It's one thing to recognize the problem, but quite another to implement change in our daily lives. Her question revealed a subtle shift to willingness to engage. Tom took a moment, letting the silence stretch, allowing the weight of her inquiry to linger. Rather than rush into a solution, he reflected on his own experiences and failures as a parent. I believe it begins with intentionality, he replied, voice steady but passionate. Each of us can commit to regular moments of engagement with our children's simple acts of listening or shared activities that require vulnerability from both sides. It could be as straightforward as a family dinner without distractions or a weekend hiking trip where the objective isn't the destination, but the conversation. He visualized Emily's laughter during their outdoor hikes, the way she had opened up about her struggles, sharing her dreams under the vast sky. Those moments of confidence had emerged from the simplest experiences, reminding him that connection flourished not through extravagant gifts, but genuine interactions. A middle-aged father raised a hand, skepticism still evident in his brow. But what if our kids resist? What if they don't want the connection? Are we not sidelining their choices by imposing this on them? Tom understood the parental instinct to protect, yet that same instinct could hinder growth. Resistance is natural. Change is uncomfortable, he countered. Instead of imposing, we must invite. Let them see that our intentions stem from love, not control. He felt a shift within himself. Each moment spent articulating these ideas sparked a deeper realization. The sum of his experiences had crafted a newfound resilience. The more he exposed his own vulnerabilities, the more he unearthed strength. As the discussion deepened, he realized he hadn't yet tapped into the awkwardness that rested beneath the surface, how his identity as a father had become entwined with the pressures of affluence. Were his own choices unconsciously conveying a message of inadequacy to Emily? Had he indeed, in pursuit of providing the best, overlooked what made life truly enriching? Suddenly, from the back again, a voice challenged him. You're making the assumption that we all have the time to engage in this way. That we aren't overwhelmed by our responsibilities. Have you thought about the reality we live in? That voice echoed the doubts he feared, but had not yet articulated to himself. It stung deeply, confronting his own growing sense of entitlement wrapped in aspirations of change. Tom paused, grappling with that reality. His thoughts began to spiral, questioning his commitment and examining the full depth of his determination. He couldn't ignore the parallel disparity existed not just in their wealth, but in their willingness to invest. Would they simply retreat back to their comfort zones, or would they collectively muster the courage to step beyond? Conflicting emotions swirled within him, intertwining with a burgeoning sense of urgency. He had started this conversation, but where could he take it next? With a mix of trepidation and excitement, he faced them all anew. Could he provoke a confrontation and dare to challenge their notions of parenting? As he prepared to speak again, the gravity of his mission resonated now more than ever. There was an awakening in him, a desire not just to inspire, but to transform the entire narrative. The power of hope lay ahead, tangled with fear, and with that, he decided it was time to dig deeper, to challenge the very fabric of what it meant to parent in today's world. The question loomed above him: would he lead this charge into the heart of discomfort, or fall back into complacency? The stakes had risen, and so had his determination, as the moment of truth drew nearer. Tom's heart raced as he stood at the precipice of a defining moment. The challenge posed to him hung heavily in the air, yet it clashed with an unexpected stirring inside. He had arrived here seeking connection, searching for a way to shift the dynamics of parenting etched in gold-plated norms. Now, he faced the scrutiny of both his peers and himself. He realized the gravity of what he needed to do, confront not only them, but also the version of himself that had succumbed to societal expectations. Let us not kid ourselves, he asserted, his voice gaining strength. Time isn't just a resource, it's a commitment we make to our kids. Yes, life is chaotic. But if we deem something important, we find a way, whether it's through early mornings, late nights, or altogether saying no to other distractions. Redirecting our priorities can mean everything to them. The middle-aged father who had initially pushed back seemed to ponder Tom's words, his brow furrowing as he weighed the implications. Tom seized the moment, feeling invigorated by his own passion. He could no longer afford to cater to their discomfort or his own hesitations. "I know what you're thinking," Tom continued, glancing around the room. "You're caught up in a world that demands your time, your attention, your success. Those pressures are real and relentless. But we can't dismiss the emotional landscape our kids navigate. If we don't engage with these realities, who will?" His words left a pause that beckoned clarity. The weight of the conversation shifted, the silence thick with contemplation. Parents began to share glances, connecting the overarching narrative that had shaped their lives. One woman, a single mother with tired eyes, broke the silence. "I juggle 2 jobs and care for my kids alone. Some days, simply surviving feels like an accomplishment. How can I possibly prioritize purposeful engagement when it feels like I'm on a hamster wheel?" Tom's empathy surged to the surface as he sensed the depth of her struggle. This was not just about ideals, but the raw realities faced by parents everywhere, a reality he could no longer sidestep. "But you're navigating that for them," he replied gently. "Even in carving out just 10 minutes to genuinely listen, you're saying, 'I see you. You matter.' Connection doesn't have to be grand. It can be woven into the fabric of everyday life." He watched as the woman's expression softened, shifting from despair to a burgeoning understanding. There was a glimmer of hope in her eyes, a tentative belief that change could begin at home, no matter the scale. "Maybe it's those small moments that count," she conceded, her voice barely a whisper. "Yes," Tom replied, feeling a surge of unity. "Those moments are crucial. Whether it's a shared meal, a bedtime story, or a simple walk, it's giving your children a chance to express themselves. And, honestly, you'll be surprised their resistance may actually turn into an eagerness to connect when they feel the foundation of that connection holds genuine love and understanding." As he spoke, an alarming realization settled in his mind. This journey was not just about convincing others to change. It was also about his own need to confront the comforts he'd grown accustomed to. The very notion of wealth had encased him in a bubble, making him forget the rich tapestries of relationships formed through authenticity. "Have you ever thought about what drove your choices as parents?" he asked, probing deeper. "Are we perpetuating patterns that subtly undermine our kids' self-worth?" I realized my own material aspirations might have unintentionally told Emily that love could be bought. The room buzzed with energy, a collection of experiences colliding against Tom's blunt challenge. He could see a flicker of recognition in their faces as they wrestled with the uncomfortable truths he unearthed. Yet an unsettling doubt tantalized: would his own revelations incite a change or merely deepen their commitment to superficiality? "Remember," Tom added, voice steady but tinged with urgency, "change is a choice we make, but it requires collective courage. We owe it to our children to embody the very values we preach, even if it forces us to confront our vulnerabilities. Are we willing to conduct our own introspection to break free?" The dilemma gripped him. As he stood amidst the shifting currents of parenthood, he felt the urgency flare again within. This transformation could only begin with him. Together, they could confront the fears lurking in the shadows of indulgence. Tom drew a deep breath, considering the possibilities that lay ahead. Could he galvanize this group to embrace vulnerability as a source of strength, rather than a burden? And as the weight of this mission crystallized, he realized the next step was pivotal. Would they rally to forge authentic engagements as a foundation, or cling to the comfortable, distorted tales of success? The choice was imminent, challenging not only their parenting styles, but the essence of who they were. The air was thick with tension, the kind that settles in after an unexpected revelation, mixing uncertainty with newfound clarity. Tom could sense the gravity of the moment pressing into the silence. He had exposed a wound, and it needed time to bleed, to heal, or perhaps shape itself into something more profound. This was not simply a dialogue, it was an awakening. Tom watched as each parent processed his words, their faces a tapestry of expression: curiosity, introspection, defensiveness, and the slightest flickers of hope. In that instant, He understood that he was no longer just an advocate for change. He was a fellow traveler grappling with similarly entrenched expectations. As the group's murmurs began to settle, he felt a pulse of determination within himself. He was still scared, but fear had now transformed into a tool rather than a hindrance. His own reflections crystallized into a focused strategy. It was no longer about challenging others. It was a quiet reckoning within him to demonstrate that vulnerability was not a weakness, but a path to genuine connection. "Look," Tom said, voice firm, "we don't have to rewrite our lives overnight, but we can start small. We can begin to notice the moments we let slip away in our daily hustle. Let us share one thing we can change this week. Just one interaction that shifts the dynamics in our homes." The collective pause echoed a moment of uncertainty. But then one father, who had been fidgeting with his wedding ring, spoke. I think I'll ask my son about his favorite video game and really listen to what he has to say. I usually just nod and move on. But I want to know what excites him." "Great." Tom energized, feeling a spark in the room. "And you will see how that small gesture creates ripples." Encouraged, another woman leaned in. "I guess I could put my phone down during dinner. Just for the meal. It shouldn't be that hard, right?" Tom felt the energy surge. Each simple commitment stitched the group closer together. Their faces lit up, realizing they were crafting their own moments of transformation. Yet amidst this communal movement towards meaningful engagement, an echo of self-doubt nagged at Tom. He had lit a spark, but would these moments stick? Would the simplicity of such commitments hold against the overwhelming tide of modern distractions? A hint of bitterness creeped in. Who was he to lead this charge? He was still just as tangled in the web of societal norms. Instead of succumbing to those fears, Tom steered his attention inward, assessing the fragile but growing resolve in himself. What could he give up? What deeper commitments could he forge within his family? He thought of Emily's laughter and the fleeting minutes he had brushed aside while caught up in his own ambitions. Could he return to that innocent world of connection he once cherished? Sometimes, Tom said, vulnerability cracking through the facade, the biggest change we face is accepting our past choices. I know I have let material things define my success instead of the relationships I've neglected. Will I face this head-on, dismantle those beliefs, and navigate forward authentically? His self-examination cast an illuminating light on the group. They were not simply absorbing the moment, they were reflecting on their own journeys. Their hesitant nods and softened features began to resonate with Tom's confession. A subtle communal understanding formed. They were all grappling with similar burdens, but as the meeting came to a close, Tom felt the familiar sense of urgency. They had shared their intentions, yet the reality loomed like a shadow. The path ahead required constant confrontation with their ingrained habits. Was he ready to follow through on his commitments? He thought of Emily, her perceptive eyes that could often see right through the polished illusions he had created. Would he risk vulnerability again for a deeper truth? As he looked out across the tentative faces inching toward courage, he felt the pressure mount. The next appointment was indeed crucial for this fragile moment of clarity. Were they truly ready to meet vulnerability with open arms, or would they retreat back into comfortable but hollow norms? The future hung precariously, shrouded in possibility. And as Tom stood on the brink of his own decisions, he knew another confrontation awaited. This one would challenge not just their discussion, but the very foundation of their fears, their identities. The moment of truth was drawing near, and he had to prepare to face it head-on. Tom stepped out of the community center into the cool evening air, the weight of the meeting still lingering in his chest. He had been vulnerable in front of the group, and now his own words echoed in his mind. He felt unsettled yet excited, a serendipitous conflict shaping within him. The responsibility he had asked of others now reflected back at him, magnifying his own indecisions and desires. As Tom drove home, he battled with his growing resolve and the underlying fear that taunted him. What if the change he sought wasn't as easy as initiating conversations with his family? He thought of his daughter, Emily, and the leisurely moments they used to share. Moments he often sacrificed under the weight of his ambitions. The memory of her laughter reverberated in his mind. It pulled him with a fierce intensity, pushing him to reevaluate his priorities. Those thoughts nagged at him, piggybacking on his earlier realizations. He resolved to act, to connect, but each step forward seemed fraught with the risk of disappointment. What if he failed to uphold the commitment to engage, to truly listen? The stakes felt high, like a tightrope walk above his past self, one misstep away from falling back into the old patterns that had long defined him. Pulling into the driveway, Tom sat for a moment, steeling himself. He wouldn't shy away this time, he told himself. When he walked inside, he wanted to be fully present, to emerge from behind the layers of pretense that had dulled his relationship with his family. "Emily," he called, a wave of anticipation thrumming at his core as he stepped over the threshold. She appeared in the living room, her eyes lighting up a fraction at the sound of her father's voice. "Hey, Dad. Just finishing my homework," she replied, her tone casual, but tinged with that familiar youthful thrill that Tom had always cherished. "Can I join you for a bit?" The request felt clumsy, but he swallowed his anxiety. "Sure," Emily said, that spark amplifying in her features. She gestured to the floor, inviting him to sit beside her. As he settled in, a silence loomed between them for a moment. Tom felt the awkwardness creeping in. Was he really ready to engage authentically? The last time they had been this close, he had been too mired in his own distractions to embrace the opportunity fully. But tonight was different. He would strive for connection, one thought at a time. "Hey, I've been thinking about something," he began, glancing at her with a newfound earnestness. "What is your favorite thing to do in the evenings when you're winding down? Like, what makes you genuinely happy?" Emily's brow furrowed in thought, her pencil pausing. "Well, I love watching shows with you. It's fun to joke about the characters and stuff." Tom's heart warmed, but a flicker of guilt shot through him. Had he neglected this? Were these simple, shared moments not as crucial as the accomplishments he wore like trophies? "Then let us schedule a show night together," he proposed. "Just us. No distractions." Emily's face brightened, and Tom felt the surge of something healing between them. But deep within, he recognized this small success was just the beginning. Setting these boundaries was the easy part. Living by them would challenge him in ways he hadn't yet confronted. The commitment demanded discipline and an unwavering determination to push past the noise of his daily life. As they chatted about their favorite episodes, Tom felt the walls closing in on his past excuses. Could he redirect this newfound energy towards fixing the fragmented relationships that had defined his family life? His resolve hardened further, yet an undercurrent of vulnerability lingered. What if they didn't respond as he hoped? He knew this moment would not guarantee permanent change, but it was merely a step toward redefining everything he thought was important. The road ahead would be rocky, riddled with doubts and temptations to revert to his old ways. Sitting there beside Emily, Tom almost felt like he was on the precipice of something far greater than personal fulfillment. He was grappling with the very essence of his identity. Each interaction would serve as both a test and an opportunity to unearth facets of himself he had long suppressed. With every heartbeat, the anticipation mounted. He sensed he was standing at a threshold, staring down a path riddled with challenges waiting to be met head-on. Would he continue to rise, or would he falter under the familiar weight of hesitation? The answer felt just out of reach, inviting him to step forward into the unknown, where the real confrontation awaited his identity as both a father and a man transformed. With those thoughts churning in his mind, he knew the next moment would be crucial, one that could redefine his purpose once again. The evening stretched on, and as Tom shared laughter and banter with Emily, a flicker of nostalgia washed over him. This was the environment he had longed for and neglected. Yet beneath the joy, a deeper conflict simmered, rising like a tide, calling into question the authenticity of the connection they were building. What truly lay in the depths of his heart? He remained curious about whether he was merely fulfilling a role or opening up to the real possibilities of fatherhood. The show night was an unexpected gift. It felt less like a routine and more like a lifeline. They settled into the couch after finishing homework, surrounding themselves with snacks and the comforting glow of the TV. Yet, even as the opening credits rolled, Tom found himself questioning his own engagement. Was he truly present? Or was he merely glancing at the laughs while his mind drifted to the immediate pressures of his professional life? Dad? Emily's voice sliced through his reverie, pulling him back. You okay? Her innocent inquiry triggered a hard truth, an awareness that swept over him like a cold draft. She could sense his distraction, a habitual pattern that he had become adept at hiding. This moment was for their connection. It was time to face the challenge head-on. Yeah, I'm just thinking, Tom admitted, forcing a smile, but it felt strained. He realized now that vulnerability wasn't just about sharing burdens, but also about relinquishing the facade of constant control. Thinking about what? Her curiosity pushed him, and in a brave moment, he decided to share something deeper. About how I haven't been the dad you deserve. I want to do better. I want to be here with you, really here. Silence wrapped around them, and for a moment, their gazes locked. She seemed to be absorbing his words, processing his admission like a puzzle to piece together. Can we do this more often? Emily asked, her voice light yet sincere. Absolutely, he replied, the weight on his chest lessening slightly. In that moment, he realized that this journey would require not just discipline, but the courage to embrace discomfort. Over the next few days, their evening ritual continued, and Tom's dedication to showing up for Emily grew stronger. They explored various activities together, sharing quiet talks about life, aspirations, and fears. Yet, there still lingered a gnawing anxiety within him, a feeling that this newfound intimacy was a delicate glass sculpture one misstep away from shattering under the pressure of past failures and present fears. Back at work, he noticed how his reshaped home life began to bleed into his professional interactions. In meetings, Tom practiced clarity over avoidance. He voiced opinions he had kept silenced, advocating for approaches he had once dismissed, feeling empowered as he recognized transferable skills that he had long overlooked. His development transformed not just in the realm of fatherhood but echoed through his career as well, forging connections with colleagues he had previously kept at arm's length. As the weeks unraveled, Tom felt the urge to delve into the realms of deeper vulnerability. He was drawn to the idea of authenticity, not just showing up, but sharing the full spectrum of himself, weaknesses, and strengths alike. It spurred a thirst for direct honesty that he aimed to extend beyond Emily, to others at work and in his broader life. He began attending more discussions, addressing issues that rose to the surface, and actively seeking connections. Yet all this progress ignited a new slew of doubts. Could he maintain this newfound resolve? Tom grappled with feelings of inadequacy as the complexities of both fatherhood and professional life intertwined. The weight of expectations still hung over him, trading assurance for overwhelming fear. Would they see the difference he felt blooming within? As he walked back through the door after a demanding day, Tom was haunted by the echo of his own feelings of imposter syndrome mingling with fleeting success. He found Emily seated on the couch, studying. Her smile struck a chord of warmth, and yet doubt flickered again. How would he manage the pressure of continuing this momentum? It became clear. The journey was not just about creating a connection, but confronting his inner dialogues that screamed for reassessment. He sensed a tipping point approaching, one that could derail the progress he had fought to build. The moment he stepped toward Emily, determined to breathe through the discomfort of uncertainty, he barely scratched the surface of the many layers of change that awaited him. It was not just a test of resilience, but a bigger revelation of the man he needed to become. As he faced the challenge, he felt the spark of transformative growth standing on the horizon, a question hanging heavy in the air. Was he prepared to confront the startling truths that might surface next, unraveling everything he thought he knew about himself? Tom stood on the brink of a new dawn, the tension of the past months evaporating as he embraced the culmination of his journey. He had faced his insecurities, navigated the treacherous waters of parental expectation, and emerged with renewed clarity. Now, standing in his daughter's room, he glanced at Emily, who was engaged in her interests, a stark contrast to the shadow of doubt that had previously clouded their interactions. Their weekly family nights had morphed into moments of genuine connection and growth. Tom had learned to listen, not just to her words, but also to the unarticulated struggles she faced. Each evening spent together peeled back layers of emotional isolation that had formed between them. A new recognition formed. Vulnerability was not a sign of weakness, but a cornerstone of authentic relationships. Integrated into this newfound practice was a commitment to be fully present, no distractions, no escaping into the realm of superficial parental roles. "Emily, how about we start a project together?" he proposed, excitement bubbling beneath his words. It was time to instigate a collaborative space where they both could create, learn, and discover together. "We could document our weekly adventures in a scrapbook or a blog. It'll give us a way to express ourselves." Emily looked up, her interest piqued. "That sounds fun. We could include things that inspire us, like art, books, and quotes," she replied with that spark of enthusiasm that had once flickered, but now shone bright. Their discussions evolved from mere trivial conversations into profound exchanges about their dreams and fears. Tom watched proudly as Emily started to articulate her values, carving out her identity, free from the shackles of peer pressure. It was a transformative process he had long yearned for, but had often felt powerless to facilitate. As weeks turned into months, the gradual impact of his engagement rippled through to his professional life as well. He exhibited newfound confidence in the classroom, igniting discussions rich with relevance and authenticity. Tom began introducing concepts focused on emotional intelligence to his students, encouraging them to reflect on their own experiences and challenges. The shift was palpable, engagement surged, and discussions became deeper and more meaningful. Recognition came unexpectedly when Tom received an award for excellence in teaching. It wasn't just the acknowledgement of his curriculum, it was a validation of his holistic approach to education, teaching not just history but life itself. As he accepted the award, he felt a profound sense of accomplishment, not only in the eyes of his peers, but also in the eyes of Emily, who beamed with pride in the audience. This trajectory of growth led him to spearhead initiatives within the school that encouraged an emotional discourse among students. Workshops became a platform for collective reflection, where identity, self-worth, and vulnerability were nurtured. Parents began to attend, changing their perspectives as they absorbed this emotional shift. Through defending Emily's experiences, Tom had inadvertently crafted a support network for all children alike. Standing in front of his students one day, Tom articulated, "Every day is an opportunity for us to redefine what success means. It's not about what we own but who we choose to be." The affirmation echoed through the room, instilling a sense of hope and integrity. Reflecting on his journey, Tom humorously recalled his initial resistance to embracing vulnerability. He had fought so hard to uphold a facade, one that had restrained Emily and stifled their connection. But as he stood in front of his class, a wave of satisfaction washed over him. He had conquered the very fears that had once paralyzed him. A solid confidence resided within, combined with an unwavering commitment to nurture and encourage those around him. As the months flowed continuously, Tom and Emily remained committed to their project. They celebrated milestones, documented struggles, and cherished small victories. That scrapbook became a tangible representation of their shared growth, a testament to their journey together. Now, Tom was recognized not just as an educator, but as a father who truly understood the essence of parenting. He proved that it's possible to rise above the distractions of materialism and societal pressures to cultivate deeper relationships founded on mutual respect and authentic connection, with contentment radiating from within. Tom could now fully embrace the privilege of being Emily's father, a feat more valuable than any designer handbag. This metamorphosis led him not just to a professional validation, but a personal fulfillment that transcended the superficial standards he had once believed in. And as Tom stood beside Emily one last time, the realization dawned upon him: he had ultimately transformed his life through embracing authenticity and vulnerability. With concrete actions defining his newfound beliefs, he accomplished not just change within himself, but fostered a culture of resilience in his home and classroom alike. The beauty of this journey settled in the most resonant truth of all: while the world may measure worth by material possessions, true value was grounded in understanding, empathy, And love. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Every engagement matters. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. We want to hear your thoughts. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Remember, only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.